Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. It's Tuesday and the patch notes for patch 7.12 have just been published, and that means it's time for another patch note rundown. As always, I'll be going through the biggest changes in the patch and trying to highlight the things that you guys should be looking forward to in the coming weeks. Now, patch 7.12 has a lot of balance changes, but mostly on the smaller side. The primary focus of this patch was actually on support itemization. Support itemization has been changed fairly significantly so as to move supports away from the core of Locket, Redemption, and nothing else, and into more diverse build paths depending on what you want your support to do. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and get started with the champion buffs and nerfs in this patch, starting with Camille. She's been out of the patch notes for a while now, and that's because she's actually been relatively weak. Now that most of her counterplay issues have been solved, Riot are comfortable with giving her a little bit of power back to make her feel a little bit better in lane. Her passive cooldown is reduced fairly significantly, especially early on, and the Q second hit damage, if it's delayed, is back up to 200%, so Camille will feel a little bit better about taking early trades in lane. Next up is Corki. Corki's another champion that's been gone from the patch notes and competitive scene for a while, as he was pretty significantly nerfed in the mid lane. However, Riot are trying to give him a little bit of power back and also really reinforce his position as the magic damage dealing AD carry, as it were. So, he got slight increases to his base attack speed and base AD, and his passive now converts 80% of the damage to magic and 20 to physical instead of splitting it 50-50. So Corki will be doing significant amounts of magic damage. Don't build armor against him anymore. It won't help. There was also a slight change to Corki as well. He can buffer Phosphorus Bomb and Missile Barrage while he casts Valkyrie, so it helps a little bit with his reliability on that end. Next up, we have Kindred. Kindred have been suffering quite a bit since their rework. Just a lot of changes happened, and so Riot are comfortable with giving them back basically power across the board in order to help them out. Their base attack damage was increased, and W had a few changes for it. It no longer starts counting down on its duration until Wolf reaches the area and it actually forms, and Wolf's dash speed has been increased. Additionally, Creeping Dread's mana cost is reduced by a little bit, so Kindred should be feeling a little bit better in the future. Next up is Rek'Sai, our other rework from the previous patch. Rek'Sai has also been struggling since the rework, and part of it was just because of her consistency issues, especially on the ultimate, where you could just kind of walk out of it. That was kind of a problem and not really intended, so Riot are helping her get a little bit more reliability back in her kit. Her base AD and armor per level have been increased, and the Burrow WAD ratio has been increased. Additionally, Void Rush has been changed, so it is much harder to dodge. Unless you have significant amounts of movement speed or a dash, it's going to hit and do the damage. So it should help Rek'Sai feel a little bit better about things in the future. Next up for champions, we have Rumble. Rumble has been very, very good recently, but his changes actually are almost more of a buff than anything. They're intended to give him clearer windows of vulnerability early on in the game, and also intended to make the play around his heat work a little bit better. So Rumble's heat decay starts later than usual, but it does decay at 10 per tick as opposed to 5 per tick, and it will tick every 1 second. So it should make it a little bit easier for newer players to get a handle on Rumble's heat without affecting his experienced players too much. Q now deals reduced damage to minions specifically, and has a higher cooldown that scales down with rank. However, it does also have increased base damage and an increased ratio. Rumble's W has a decreased duration, but will shield him for more, and his E will deal more base damage and has a higher slow. So generally across the board, Rumble is stronger. Finally, for champions, we do have Zac. He's getting nerfed this patch. I think we all saw this coming. He's still doing way too much damage for a tank. You should not be doing that much damage when you're intended to build straight defense. So, he's getting changed. W and E are both dealing less damage now. They lost base damage. So, Zac should be toned down a little bit. We'll see if it's enough. He may bounce back from this one. Next up, I want to talk about support itemization. Pretty much all of the not all of them, but a large portion of support itemization was passed over in today's patch and kind of readjusted to help supports actually itemize for specific stats, as opposed to just kind of building Redemption and Locket and forgetting entirely about any other kind of item. So, these two items specifically did have their identities reinforced as belonging to tank supports or mage supports. Locket of the Iron Solari shield values now scale with the caster's bonus health. So if you're squishy, you will not get a very big shield, whereas if you're tanky, you will. And then Redemption also gives less health regen, and the heal was greatly nerfed. However, the heal amount now scales 3 times as well with heal and shield power amplifiers. So something like Ardent Sensor or Forbidden Idol items that give you heal and shield power bonuses, it now gets 3 times the amount from them. So squishy supports who are building items like Ardent Sensor or Mikhail's Crucible will now feel very, very good about building Redemption, while tank supports will not feel as good. Next up, Zeke's Harbinger has been reworked entirely. It is now called Zeke's Convergence and built out of a Glacial Shroud and an Aegis of the Legion. And this ability is really, really weird, so I'll talk about it in a little bit at more depth. Now, whenever you cast your ultimate near your bonded ally, you summon a Frost Storm around yourself that slows nearby enemies. And your ally that attacks enemies will cause the storm to deal bonus damage and slow them. Your attacks will do the same thing. It's kind of weird. I'm not quite sure how it's playing around now, but it's intended to be a good item for wardens who want to keep their AD carries safe in fights and kind of create dangerous no-go zones for enemies trying to get to them. Next up is Athene's Unholy Grail, which had sort of a mini rework, not quite as bad as Zeke's Convergence, but still was reworked anyways. It generally grants less stats than it did before. It earns blood charges faster now, and it now grants 5 AP for every plus 25% mana regen your champion builds, which means that this is a really good capstone item on champions like supports who are building a lot of mana regen, like on Redemption, Ardent Sensor, Mikhail's Crucible, and the like. It kind of works as support death cap, as it were. So I'm actually quite interested to see how this item plays out now in the support category. Knight's Vow now builds out of a Chain Vest and a Kindle Gem, so to give it a little bit more CDR, help tanks access that stat a little bit better. And Righteous Glory actually had its build path changed. It now uses a Glacial Shroud instead of a Catalyst, and the Slow Nova triggers automatically when an enemy champion is within range. The intention behind this is that the Catalyst of Aeons that it built out of kind of implies extended power and helps champions have more staying power in a fight, whereas Righteous Glory as an item kind of says we're fighting right now, so this is intended to line it up better with those, with that intended use. Finally, that's it for the support items. We're going to talk a little bit about another 2 pair of items that people have been concerned about, Doran's Ring and Doran's Shield. Both of those items have been out of line for one reason or another. Doran's Ring is really ridiculous because they can be stacked and grant you a ton of magic resistance, so even if you're behind, you can still shove your opponent under tower with no problem. I'm looking at you, Nautilus and Galio. And Doran's Shield is supposed to be good against harass-heavy lanes, which it kind of is, but it's also just so overtuned that it's the best option in almost any situation. So both items have been accordingly nerfed. Doran's Ring passive is now unique, so the mana restore will only proc once whenever you kill a minion. And Doran's Shield now costs 50 more gold, so you will not be able to start with an additional potion. So both these items should be a little bit weaker and should grant more options for other champion or other starting items in the lane. And finally, I wanted to mention missions are going to begin this week with the Versus event that will be going live as part of the Dawnbringer Riven and Nightbringer Yasuo skin release. You will be able to compete in these events. Completing events will grant you bonuses, and you can spend these bonuses to unlock permanent in-game content, so it will be interesting to see how that shakes out. Anyways, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you all so very much for watching. Go ahead and let me know which parts of the patch you're most excited for down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. If you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later.